Anyway, continue.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you need to do any relay troubleshooting during the show, please don't worry about it.
Um, I'm sure it'll be fine.
It's been a crazy week. We are live. It's been a crazy
Oh,
weekend for you.
yeah. I feel kind of bad because I was supposed to spend more time with the fam, but it's just like they could just see that I'm just engrossed in what's happening right now and just trying to keep things alive. But it's been wild. It's been exciting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has happened over the last 5 days, particularly. For any freaks listening at home, sitting down with jb55, who was on the show earlier this year to give us a download on Nostra. He's had his head down working hard since that first episode, and it seems like there's been an explosion of growth, particularly in the last week. In the wake of Elon taking over Twitter and debates over censorship, Jack Dorsey has been talking about Nostra more, sharing screenshots of him using your Bolt 11 feature in it, and then toward the end of last week, he decided to give you guys 1.417 odd billion sats in a grant.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. So this all started when I guess Jack funded Signal, and he did a post about how he. I didn't actually read the whole post. I should probably do that. But it was, I don't know if you read it, but it was something along the lines of like he wants to fund more decentralized projects and things like that. And then so I think people just started to like message him on that thread on Twitter about like my project and about Nostr in general. And then just like enough Bitcoiners like spammed him. And they're like, okay, what's this? And I think he just DM'd me. He's like, does Nostr have a foundation? I'm like, what is this about? Because I guess he was like, hey, if he is going to donate like he did to Signal, because Signal's a nonprofit, he's like, what would be the easiest way to donate to Nostra? So he's like, okay, I'll figure it out. I don't really know how to do this yet. So he jumped. I think he did. So I sent him a link to Damus, and he just jumped on and started chatting with people. And then I think he did this for like 12 hours. Like he was just playing with Nostra and like checking out different clients. And after 12 hours, he's like, "Yep, I'm sending you guys Bitcoin. This is awesome." I was like, "Okay." He makes his decision pretty quickly, I guess, but it was cool.
And yeah, no, it's funny because he wrote that post on Review, which was a Twitter product, and then like within 24 hours, they like deplatformed him from that newsletter service. It seems.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think that's what happened. I believe so. You got an email saying you have to shut down your account, which is funny.
That's bizarre. That's bizarre.
Yeah, it is bizarre. There's a lot of bizarre things going on in the world today, particularly social media. I mean, the Twitter files showing that the FBI was intimately involved with decisions that were being made there. It seems like Nostra is having its moment in the sun, and it's desperately needed as we find out that censorship is on the rise here in the West.
Yeah, so that was like the first burst of users, which pretty much like took down the servers. It's like we got like 1,000 new signups, which was like, I don't know, it seemed like that's a lot because we didn't have that many active users until Jack showed up. So like having 1,000 people and like hitting all the relays at once, like okay, like we're starting to see some obvious issues with the servers. And then just when I thought like okay, this is enough for me to like okay, this is already keeping me busy trying to keep the servers up. Then Twitter support like yesterday, I don't know, I'm sure we'll get there, but they just say like, oh yeah, we're no longer, and they include Nostra, like we're no longer going to allow promoting alternate platforms like Nostra, and like that. So the Jack one was big, but that like I think that exposed Nostra to a lot more people or something because like it was starting to go into the like news websites and like so that one like again brought our relays down again. It's just like that was more promo than even Jack stuff. I think it was insane. So it had like an opposite effect, like Streisand effect.
Yeah, massive Streisand effect. And technically, in that announcement, they're wrong, right? Like Nostra isn't a social media app; it's just a communications layer that social media
Yeah,
apps can be built on top of. Correct?
I'm guessing they just threw that in there because of Jack, because Jack started like promoting it a lot and he has a lot of followers. So they probably just didn't really look into what Nostra is. They probably thought it was just another platform like True Social or something, but it's not.
So, for anybody who just became aware of Nostra in the last week and didn't listen to our previous episode, what is the 30,000-foot view synopsis of what Nostra is, what you guys are building, and then how apps like Damus play into it?
I find the best way I like to describe it is using the email analogy. So so I'm working on a client called Damus, and it's a work in it, and it's a client for a protocol called Nostra. So the way that you can kind of think about that is that Nostra is like the email protocol, and Damus is like Gmail. So it's just like one particular client that can communicate this with this way of sending messages. So it's kind of like email, but it's not email. It's actually meant for social media. So it's kind of like the email protocol of social media in some sense.
Yeah. And so
High level.
messages are being relayed through these relay servers, which you were mentioning earlier, and they use WebSockets to communicate, correct?
Yeah. So one big difference from let's say email. So all the communications are real time. So you can connect to a relay and send and receive messages in real time. You can subscribe to messages that are to you. So I've written a couple programs on my computer where I will just monitor any notifications toward me, and then it'll pop up a notification on my desktop. So that's easy. You can do that with WebSockets. So the main point of it is like you could use just a single relay, but that's not that interesting because that single relay can just ban you and censor you. So the idea is that you create a relay pool, so you connect to multiple relays at the same time, and you send and receive messages to all the relays at once, and therefore you get all these nice properties such as not one relay can censor you. If you're a high profile person, let's say you're like Alex Jones, you maybe have like InfoWars relay, and then like what can you do? They'd have to shut that down, but if you have a client, you can just connect to that relay, and that's what it should be. Like you should be able to. It's kind of like that's how the internet should be. You can run your own stuff, and no one can tell you what to do. It's kind of the original ideas of the internet, right? So
yeah, in terms of spinning up these relays, what does that look like? How hard would it be for a motivated individual to do that?
So I used currently the fastest relay. It's called Nostr RS relay. So if you know how to compile like Rust code, which is like Cargo makes it so easy to compile Rust code. So you can just like download this thing and type cargo compile or whatever, cargo build release, and just run it. It's a small SQLite database. It has very minimal dependencies. It's easier than running like a Bitcoin node, really. I mean, anyway, I won't get into that, but it's very easy to run node, very like low on the resources. So
yeah. And I saw you interacting with Wiz last night to get a server up on his ISP.
Yeah, that was cool because I guess he's running a lot of like bare metal servers with like tons of they're beefy servers, and I'm like, well, we need more of those right now because our relay set. So when you first use Damus iOS, for instance, it'll just use the Damus relay because I did that kind of as like a nice thing to do because I realized if there's a lot of people going to join the Damus iOS, I don't want to just like add a bunch of Bootstrap relays and like kill everyone's relays at once. So users have the choice to add additional relays afterwards, but the default set, I'm like, it would be nice to have more Bootstrap relays in that default set. But I would want someone who could actually run like serious infrastructure. So Wiz was one of those people who offered to do that, and that's really cool. So he's running one now, and it's the default relay. I just pushed out a version of Damus iOS that adds his servers. So
hell yeah,
which is kind of cool because like I don't control that, right? So he has the choice to. So if I start censoring people on my relay, then it doesn't matter because by default, the client is still using his relay, which I don't even know. I don't control. So,
yeah, truly distributed message sharing over WebSockets. Yeah. And so, how would you describe the current state of Nostr and apps like Damus? Because I've been using Damus off and on over the last few months, and I mean, obviously, everybody's going to compare it to their everyday social media interactions with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be. Yeah. It's obvious. I mean, I think you would admit it's not.
We're nowhere close.
Nowhere close from a UX perspective. Yeah. But it has made serious leaps and bounds over the last 6 months since we last spoke. So what has the pace of growth been? What is the current state, and how quickly, especially with this new funding from Jack's grant, do you think you guys can grow to begin competing with these services?
So like one thing to keep in mind is that everyone in the Nostr community right now is like not getting paid to do this. We're all kind of just doing this for fun in our spare time and like on the weekends, just because we think it's like this cool, fun project. It's kind of like the old IRC days. It's very nostalgic because it feels like, back in the early internet days when you can just join these small communities and we're just trying to do something cool. And it's like, we don't really care. We're not trying to be commercial. We're not trying to be, start this into a huge like money making business. We're just trying to build, we're trying to free speech again on the internet, which is like, so it's more of a ideological drive for us right now, which means like in some sense the client development's been really slow. Even Damus iOS I haven't been updating as much because I've been working on the Android client. So I think I personally have been kind of lazy on the iOS side, and so ever since this started going down a couple of days ago, I realized, okay, this is getting kind of more serious, and I need to put more effort into it. And so this funding is going to help a lot. And I think I've already gotten, not even like funding itself is really good, but I think the most importantly is that Jack bringing attention to the project and getting it into people's consciousness. I've been already getting a lot of help from the PRs and stuff. Some people have already redesigned the Adamas iOS app within the last day. I'm like, so it's been really helpful overall, just getting it into the public exposure. But the funding going forward is going to be really helpful as well to incentivize it some more. So we can talk about that.
Yeah. Again, 1.417 some odd billion sats. I believe it was like $250,000.
Yeah.
Grant at the time when the Bitcoin was sent. And so you guys have set up, you have tiers. You guys had a live document for a while. I hopped in there, got very busy.
Yeah.
And I guess you and fiatjaf said, all right, we'll make this clear. You can still go to the doc, but it's read only. And you guys have set up different bounties and competitions to distribute the sats that you've been granted. What is this looking like?
Yeah, so this document was something I think Relay or fiatjaf. I called him Relay. I don't know why I called him Relay. fiatjaf set this up by himself. I think I don't know if he collaborated with anyone to like come up with that. But it was just kind of like, here's a rough outline of what we could potentially do. But after that, there's been like, okay, what is there a better way to do it? Should we have submissions and proposals, and then people vote on it, and then distribute funds that way? And I think fiatjaf was just kind of getting overwhelmed because he's not like. He doesn't spend all of his time in the Nostr space. So he does. So like he just was getting stressed. So he messaged me. He's like, okay, well, this is bad for my mental health. So I'm going to send you half the funds, and then we can kind of like operate independently. But I still think we're going to operate together. It's not like we're completely separate funds. I've been talking. I got all the devs together, all the core devs, to kind of like brainstorm a lot of different ideas and how can we improve the proposal and the document that fiatjaf put out. And so fiatjaf is giving kind of me a lot more power to make alternate funding decisions that are like separate from that document. So, and that's something we're still trying to figure out right now. But I do have something to announce on this podcast. This is something that all the core devs agreed upon, and I don't know if I want to do it now, but I guess I can get into it right now. So, as the first act of funding, at least on our side of things, at least on my side of the funds, is that we're going to be rewarding all the devs who have made a substantial impact on the ecosystem so far, that have been just working tirelessly without pay, and that kind of keep things alive. So we're going to do a thank you fund for those devs. I think there's about 10 of them, about 5 million sats each. And fiatjaf doesn't know this, but we're gonna, from my fund, we're gonna give him 1 Bitcoin just for
oh shit,
just from starting this whole thing and just getting it going. Because like without him, this wouldn't be here, right? So. I think it's important that we do that, just to recognize like without him that we wouldn't have this today. So that's gonna go out with the initial thank you fund. So
yeah, it seems like you're getting a little emotional right now.
Well, it is like fiatjaf. He's like, I don't really even know him. As far as I know, he's like a kid from Brazil. I don't know much about him. He's very humble. He's like he never asks for money. He doesn't want any money. Like even when I suggested to give him like 5 million, that was like, he's like, that's too much. So I think it's really important that we recognize that, he deserves it. Like it's really all his idea. So we really want to show that, people in this space who are doing good work and really want to push this forward, that they should be rewarded for that. So
yeah, I mean, I would agree. It's incredible. I mean, again, like the first time you came on, you guys started messing, or Nostr became something in my mind like about a year ago, and it was just I think fiatjaf tweeted out like, hey, we can do an alternative Twitter client using this more distributed relay system we're calling Nostra. I thought that was really cool, but at that point, it seemed like just like a pet project, proof of concept, and to see how much progress has been made in only a year, and knowing how much he's dedicated his time and work to Nostra. I mean, shout out to you guys.
And he really cares about like really making it decentralized. So he has been really critical of like some of my decisions, because I've been focusing on, user experience and like getting it. So like I could have been doing a lot more stuff with decentralization. Like we still have there's one big issue with the network right now where if you want to give someone your pug key, it doesn't have any information about which relays they are on. So right now, a lot of people have just been assuming the Damas relay as like a shelling point where everyone could just go there to find people and find messages. But in reality, we need a better pubkey format that has a relay to make it more decentralized. So he's been focusing on that. He's been trying to push me to implement that. So I'm going to be working on that next. So it's really important that. So I'm glad that he's focusing on like making sure that the network is as decentralized as possible, and that's so I really appreciate those types of specs that he's been working on.
Yeah. Are you guys able to tell on your end how most people are interacting with Nostr, whether it be desktop, mobile, Damus, other apps?
So the only hints I get from on the relay side is that so whenever you send a query, there's an ID associated with it. It should be like it's best practice that you just make that sure that that is random, so you don't really have an idea. But there's certain clients that do certain things, so you can kind of see which users are using which client. But there's no, at least if you're like the relay operator. So most other people don't see that. And so some people have been starting to put like client tags or like user agents within messages. I don't really like that because I don't feel like you need to like give away that information to people, because like that is now public information on the network. Because like, I don't know, maybe they know that you're using some particular client that's vulnerable and they can target you. So I try not to include any client metadata in any posts, and at least in my clients.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is getting back to like the UX and the future of Nostr and these clients that get built on top of it. Like, what does that look like? Like when we're thinking about if people are using Twitter, maybe they're not happy with the direction it's going in. They want alternatives, more distributed, more robust, more censorship resistant alternatives. And they say, hey, I want to begin sending messages via this Nostr messaging protocol. What does that look like for them in your mind?
Well, I think what we're going to see is that, and we're already starting to see this on the network, where the client competition is actually insanely important. For instance, when I added that Bolt 11 feature, all the users on the other clients are like, well, I want that feature. And now like Monlo, I forget his name, but he's like the Astral Ninja maintainer. Now he's starting to implement that Bolt 11 feature because of users complaining about it, that it's in DOM-S iOS. So I think this like competition between clients is going to like make the best clients, and it's going to make the best social media clients like way better than Twitter, just because Twitter doesn't have that competitive pressure. So that's one thing that I was thinking of, which is really fascinating. And also on the relay side, we're going to see like, okay, why is my client so slow? Why is it? You're going to see relays start to implement, start to compete for that as well. Because that's still an open question of like, why would you want lots of users on your relay? They're like, what's incentivizing that? I get that question asked a lot, but for now it's mostly just hobbyists. But we'll see going into the future what's the why you'd want to run a relay. But
yeah, let's dive into the Bolt 11 invoicing, because it is really cool. You essentially just paste a Bolt 11 invoice in, and you've created something within Damus that populates this widget and has a pay button. You pay, and you can pay directly from the app, or you have to go into another wallet.
Yeah, so I just want to do something really simple before I have full Lightning integration. So in the future, I do want to have the ability to connect to a Lightning wallet inside the app, and I have lots of ways of thinking about doing that, so that you can actually just click and it'll send a Lightning tip instantly. But I figured in the meantime, a really cool feature would just be, well, hey, wouldn't it be cool if a user pasted a Bolt 11 string, it just parsed it into a little widget that you can click pay. It seems like a simple thing, but people love it. Like people message me like, they're like, this is the coolest feature ever, which is weird, because it's the same content as just like copying a Bolt 11 and pasting it into your wallet. But there's something about that, just like the big pay button, you just click it. So whenever someone whenever it pops up in the network, I always just try to pay them instantly, and it's really fun. You just click the button and pay it. So yeah, users love it. So I want to expand that further. So right now it's only Bolt 11, but there's no reason why you couldn't do that with LN URLs and things like that. So,
and then in terms of privacy, I mean, obviously a lot of the individuals who are using this feature right now in Damus are posting it publicly, but theoretically, if you did really have to invoice somebody, an individual or a company, on the other end of a business transaction, and you use Damus to do a peer-to-peer message, it's significantly more private or privacy preserving than sending it over text message or email, correct?
Yeah, so it's not peer-to-peer in the sense that so I do this with my friends. So I have a friend here, Leo, in Vancouver, and he always makes me buy stuff with like fiat, and then he sends me the Bitcoin afterwards. So now what I do is I we send the bolt 11 invoices over encrypted DMs, and so like that's been awesome just having that as a use case. But it's not completely peer to peer, so like those messages are still on the relay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big issue because, and this is something that is always brought up in the space of DMs on Nostr, is that every note type currently is all public. So if you want to see who's DMing who, you can see it. You just can't see the content, but you can see who's DMing who, and that's not good. So we're actually introducing a new authentication spec so that only the people involved in the DM conversations can pull those notes. And I think that's pretty important. So the relay operators can still see the metadata, but we don't want like the entire public seeing that metadata. So that's going to be important going forward.
Yeah, they can see the metadata, but it's encrypted, so they can't see the actual message. They don't know that it's a Bitcoin invoice.
And it's not as good a signal because we don't have forward secrecy. So if either of those parties leak the private key, anyone could read all those conversations. And considering how like lax people are with private key security right now, and all the vulnerabilities we've started to see in the past few days, it's still not, I don't think, as a great signal replacement. So I do want to see, and this could potentially be a part of the fund, is can we make a better DM spec? Because this DM spec was just kind of thrown together and it's kind of like, it's not the most secure. So like, can we do better? I would love to see a signal like protocol spec on top of Nostr. That'd be awesome.
It would be. Yeah, now talking about private key management, there was a video going around Twitter over the weekend, body cam footage of some police that pulled some dude over, and they pulled out a 24-word seed phrase, and the one cop was asking, it's like, what the hell is this? And the other guy was like, oh, that's some crypto bullshit. So if the cops didn't sweep the funds right after pulling that guy over, their body cam footage just leaked the private key to the whole internet.
Oh shit. Yeah. Wow.
Better private key management.
Yeah, make sure you have a what is it, BIP39 passphrase. So if anyone sees your backed up seed phrase, it can't just swipe it instantly. So
yeah, no, it's a bit tangential, but the whole concept of teaching a generation of people or generations moving forward how to secure private public key pairs is just the UX hurdle that has not been solved perfectly yet.
Yeah, so we've been thinking that a lot on the Nostr side. So we have a few solutions which have yet to be implemented really in all the clients. So one is called Delegation. So Delegation is really cool because it solves the problem of let's say you have your private key, but you also want to use other clients, but you don't necessarily trust those clients, and they might not even be like web clients, or they could be like kind of any like a robot, or like maybe even like one of those cross posters. So how do you like let a cross poster post on your behalf without giving them the private key? So we actually have a solution that's working now on the network, and actually minds.com actually uses it. So the way that it works is that you sign this little it's called a delegation, and it gives some other party, some other private key, permission to post on your behalf, subject to some conditions. So if you'll say, hey, you post text messages, and you can only post for the next week. But every time you publish a note with that private key, when other clients query my key, it'll actually return those as well. So that's it didn't require any client updates, which is kind of nice, and it just works. So I've been testing it. I've been posting on minds.com with my user, and now like it shows up in Damus, we're already starting to see like a big cross-compatible interoperability between large platforms now, which is really cool.
Yeah. So trying to think of how that delegation works in my head.
It's kind of like just like a token that you sign. It's like, hey, it gives you that person permission to create events on your behalf. So you can even show this in the client. It says, oh, this person has posted on behalf of this person.
Okay. And so like if you're on minds.com, you post on Damus, and you have your minds.com profile or your account there. You do this delegation, and they could just pull it from Damus, post it, but it's still coming from you. It's not coming from them, right? Or the delegation, or.
So the way that it works is, so on minds.com, if you go into the settings area, you'll see like, this little delegation section, and it'll give you a string that you can sign. So you can take your private key. You don't even have to expose your private key to Minds. Sign that delegation. Now, Minds runs their own relay. And I don't know if people know this yet, because it's kind of alpha. It's not like the most robust relay. But if you connect to the relay, you can see every message from every Minds user. And it's kind of crazy and I need to add a feature in Damus iOS to like filter that from the global timeline, because it's just like a fire hose, because they're a pretty popular network. But what this means is that you can follow Zuby, you can follow all these people on Minds in Damus. And So the way that it works is, that account that I have delegation set up with, it's a different private key, but it can send messages and it'll show up on the Minds relay. And if you're connected to the Minds relay on the Damus client, you'll see those messages, and it looks like it's actually from my root key, which is kind of cool. So it did. So anyway, so it's like one of these features that it's gonna make it a lot more secure, and it'll make it a lot user friendly without having to like put your private key in everywhere, which is really bad. I eventually imagine your private key will be on your hardware wallets, and then it'll just sign delegations, and you'll never have to expose it.
Yeah. Now my memory is being jogged. The Minds.com Nostra integration was something I believe I'm pretty sure we touched on it on air last time you were on. It might have been off air, but this is a pretty big sign of validation for what you guys are building at Nostr. I mean, Minds is it's not the biggest social network, but it's a pretty well established one.
Yeah, I mean, Bill is really cool. Like, Bill's the CEO. Like, he's been on like Joe Rogan. Like, I think he's pretty well known in the space of just like trying to make a decentralized social network, and he actually really cares. Like, he tried to integrate with ActivityPub, and he realized and he ran into the same issues that I did when I tried to do that. It's insanely complicated and it's just horrible. But when we had a bunch of meetings with their dev teams, and they're like, this is so easy to integrate with. And I truly believe that Twitter could implement a Nostr relay if they wanted to. It's just that easy to integrate with. So,
yeah, I mean, Minds is proving it. So, yeah, and
I did want I did sorry I don't cut you off, but I did want to get back to a little bit more on the funding in terms of like
yeah, that's where
things.
I was just about to turn back to. I mean, you mentioned DMs, making those more private. What else?
Yeah, so there's some really important things that we need right now, I think. So one is scaling. So I think we should be looking into like a fund for people who want to help improve the scaling aspects of the network, because I think we're almost at the limit again, where if we have if we have like 10,000 more users, everything might die. So we're gonna need like caching relays. So a caching relay would be, if I send a query to the relay, maybe it doesn't actually have to do the query; it just saved a previous result and return it. So this would be really useful. That doesn't exist, and if someone wants to build that, that would totally be in the scope of the fund. Also, performance improvement patches for Nostr RS Relay, more patches to the Postgres implementation, so Nostr TS Relay. So anything like those types of contributions, we're looking at that right now. It's really important. Two, I think we need security bounties for cross-site exploits and vulnerabilities. Like right now, Damus Web is offline because someone found another vulnerability, and they just did it, and they just were swiping private keys, and they didn't. If they knew that there's actually a fund that could be rewarding them instead of them just like causing havoc, then they wouldn't just be causing havoc, and they could actually be rewarded for finding these vulnerabilities. So I think that's a big one too. So those are the two ones I'm thinking about right now, and I think that would totally be in line with at least my side of the fund, what I would be happy to reward people with. So
Scalability, cross-client security. How does that private key scraping? How did that particular attack work?
Yeah, so people are pretty lax with their private keys right now. It's like, so Damus Web, for instance, I might even just remove this from Damus Web. So if you log in, you could actually just paste in a private key, and it gets stored in local storage. But due to the way that the network works, like someone could put some JavaScript in their profile in a cleverly crafted way, and then when Damus Web tries to render that in the browser, it might actually execute some JavaScript and, like, let's say, send your local storage to their server and swipe keys. So this has actually happened already on Enigma IO, and I hope Enigma's not running still, because so super testnet, if Enigma's still running, we should take this stuff down. I don't think any of the web clients right now are still running. Like, there should be down. Anyway. So yeah, web clients the web sucks, and Nostr is particularly vulnerable to these types of attacks because no one's really focusing on improving the security. So yeah, Damus iOS is fine. So it's really just the web client. So no one should be using any web clients right now until we fix this.
And Damus iOS is okay because the private key lives on your device, and somebody would have to physically get that.
And it's not a web thing, right? So these attacks only apply to like web apps that can like run JavaScript and stuff. So Damus iOS doesn't do that, so it's not vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of how, like, again, I'm an idiot just thinking through this. Like, do you see a future in which you could have like a dedicated hardware device where maybe you just sign the private key once a month to say, hey, this is my account, I'm going to post from it, or something like that, just to keep the private key out of the browser?
Exactly. So this would this is and again, this is something I want to add to Damus Web now, which we can just we can use this delegation feature, and then you maybe have a seed signer. And so another project would be cool is like a seed signer Nostr integration. Like we'd totally fund that. That's awesome. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking, would it be possible to run relays from like a Start9 embassy,
Absolutely. Yeah.
an umbrella or something like that?
I think it's a good idea for personal backups. Like I run the Damus relay, but I also run my own personal relay for my own personal backups. Like it's not that I don't trust myself running, but like it's just nice to have a local backup of stuff on your own home network, and that you can actually send private events to, like payment notifications and stuff. So I think it's nice to have just for your own personal backup of your post.
Yeah, yeah. And then, in terms of the fund and other stuff, what type of UX improvements would you be looking for?
Yeah, it gets weird because it's like, I have a conflict of interest because anyone who's like helping my project, I would love to reward them, but like I'm also running a fund. So like I'm hoping like fiatjaf maybe would want to help fund like if people are contributing to Damus, but he's in the decision to like he's controlling his fund. He can fund people the way he wants. I still think it'd be good that we all get together and like think about the most efficient way to apply these funds, so we're not like completely opposed to each other or anything. But it was good that we split it just because it was a lot to bear just for that one person. But we're still mostly working together. So
Yeah. No, and that's another cool part of fiatjaf's fund disbursement document or whatever was do sort of just incentivize people to build cool things, and then maybe once a month have a bounty paid out to somebody that the community deems built the coolest thing that month.
That was the one suggestion I made to fiatjaf to like that was like my feedback before he wrote his document. So I'm glad that he added that. That's something I love. I mean, that's my personal bias. I love when people build cool, exciting things because it gets more people into the system. So if one client author or someone contributing to one of the clients just build something really cool, I'm like that I would want to implement. I'm like that's one example of something that we should totally reward those people for being creative, thinking creatively, getting more and more people into the system, getting them excited, building cool stuff. Like that's what we want to reward people for. And there's one more thing I want to mention, which was I also think it's really important that we reward some of the people that are sticking around the space. Like it's good to have people pop in and do one thing, but also people who like have been around and have contributing stuff for a long time. I think it's important that those people are rewarded as well, just to so there's lots of different ways of doing it, but those are the top ones that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. No, and in that particular section, again, I think it helped me get a better understanding of how Nostr and the different moving parts of the ecosystem built on top of it work. Like you'd want like a particular app for notifications, one for better for messaging. Like it seems very modular.
Yeah. So like one guy, he just joined recently. He's an iOS developer, and he started to build his own iOS client. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, it's good to have more iOS clients. I'm like, bastard, he's trying to compete with me. But in reality, he realized that he's actually he was just decided to focus on one specific thing, which is make a really good direct message client. And like that's one example where it's like you don't have to build these monolithic clients that do everything, like channels and Twitter and like DMs. Like if you want to just focus on that one user experience, like a Signal like DM app, like that's really cool, right? So we should definitely be funding that as well. So
yeah. So
and I guess the other thing is just the past few days, I'm just really used to like lone wolf programming, just like I'm trying to do everything myself, but it's actually been insanely helpful, just the amount of people who have just been submitting patches, making Damus look better, and the fact that like SCSI is basically working for free, making sure that my relay doesn't explode, and he's just like he's not getting paid to do that, and seeing all the people come in and help out, it just shows how cool this community is, like this really true open source community that we're all just trying to build something cool, and seeing everyone help out is just amazing. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, what does it feel like? I know you're probably a combination of stress and excitement the last few days, but I think, again, going back to our first conversation, just to reiterate, and you've mentioned it in passing in this conversation, but like, why are you building Nostr? Why are you building Damus? Why should other people come and contribute to this?
I think that for me, growing, and I mentioned this before, I think, but just growing up on the internet in the early days and and having that feeling of like, it's not controlled by any corporate interest. It's just real people and like nerds and like, and people of like everyone, right? Just communicating with each other online, like as it should be. There's something about that. There's something really nostalgic about that. And that's what I, I just wish we would see more of that in the world, and just working on it is more just, and more people should experience that, because there's something really true and real about it versus just what we are exposed to, just getting ads jammed down our throat and all this stuff. So yeah, it's very ideological for me because I think it's really cool. But yeah, obviously I do want I want to make this into a business, maybe make it easier for businesses to get on Nostr and things like that. So I've been definitely considering that. I'm looking to talk to Jeff Booth, because Jeff Booth just messaged me and like potentially do some type of ego desk setup. So I definitely think about getting some VC funding to build this out even bigger. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, put my 1031 hat on again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
something.
Right. You got your own.
No, I was saying it's definitely, I mean, I told you earlier this year, it's definitely something we explore as well. But going back to your point of like the nostalgia, I agree. It's definitely nostalgic, but it's funny you put it that way, because I'm writing a newsletter right now that'll go out later today, which I think like the future of the internet is a return to the past, the nostalgic past that you just described. And I think what we found over the last decade particularly is just it wasn't as easy to build that more distributed web topology, maybe between 2000 and 2015. I think it's become considerably easier over the last 5 to 7 years, and more particularly the last few years, with certainly Bitcoin highlighting to people the importance of these distributed systems. But no, I do think we're going to return to the original version of the web, or vision of the web, which is individuals creating and distributing content, and that content being distributed in a more decentralized fashion. And the example I'm using is, I think everybody producing a website or a newsletter, articles should move away from like the Substack model and should own and host their own ghost, and then inject it with BTC Pay server and the tools to enable this more pure web experience have never been better than they are today.
Yeah, I think there was like this great centralization on the internet between 2000 and like even till today, really. But I think Bitcoin was like the first thing that kind of broke people's, like, they were under some type of spell. Like, this is all so great. There's all these nice products and it's nice UX. And then we're starting to see the cracks and all that, right? We started to see the flaws and like how much power these companies have over censoring speech and really just in some sense mind controlling us, because they can control how we think. They can control, what products we should ingest. So there's something just like really like corrupting and evil in like really in a true way about what has happened to the internet. And even like when you go on Google these days, and the results you get are just complete BS and just completely paid for, and nothing's real. It doesn't seem like. So I feel like Bitcoin in some sense broke that spell. It showed that like, hey, protocols are important again, and we can't escape this like spell that we're under. So I think we're slowly getting back to what the internet's true vision.
Yeah. And it's just easier than ever. Like, it's easy to spin up a Ghost site. Yes, out of the box, you host using Ghost as hosting provider, but if you have a competent developer who can spin up your own server, or find a partner that does cloud services that you trust, you can easily port that over, get all the benefits of the publisher UI they've built and the distribution channels they've built, and host it yourself. And then with Bitcoin, you can monetize it directly with Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer fashion on top of that. And it was just so much easier to spin up a Facebook page or a Twitter account or an Instagram, whatever it may be, to get your message out there. It was much harder to build your own site and self-host it and actually control your content. Everybody allocated it to these behemoth tech companies for the better part of 15 years now. And it seems like the trend's being forced too. I mean, with the tweet from Twitter support over the weekend that has since been deleted. Which, I mean, who knows what's going on there now that Elon's taken over. It's been a bit volatile in terms of messaging and positioning in the public, but regardless of what the intentions are or what ends up happening, I think it's certainly driven home to people like, hey, these are very centralized and very controlled companies that we probably shouldn't be building our brands, building our companies, building our connections on.
Yeah, they're becoming more and more of a liability, and it's really, I think it's really important that we're building out these alternate solutions and just making it easier. So one thing I really like about Nostra is that it really you don't have to run any server to interact with it. And this is something that, but it still gives you decentralization. So when people think about not having to run a server, like, okay, well, whose server are you running? Are you really in control? Is it really that decentralized? But so it's really cool that we can actually maintain a lot of these decentralized aspects, but and without having to have the burden of running your own server. So like, so maybe you can find a developer to like, set that up, but a lot of people don't have access to that, right? And you might be just some person in the middle of nowhere who doesn't have a lot of money, and you want to put your message out and want to start a website or start a blog. So I could totally see people using Nostra for blogging and things like that. That's not really been explored yet. And just, it would be as easy as starting a client and sending a message. You wouldn't have to set up anything. So
yeah, that's exciting.
mm-hmm.
Things are exciting again. It's it's that old adage, like innovation comes when, it's not the old adage, I'm just ad-libbing right now, but like innovation gets forced when people get backed into a corner, and
oh yeah,
people are getting backed into many corners right now.
Yeah, I kind of suspected this would happen eventually. There's come to a point. It's like, how badly do they want to abuse their power just to the point where you're going to push us to the state? Like, yes, I'm willing to, spend countless nights, sleepless nights, like getting all this stuff working, just because I don't want you to have that much power to have that much control over me. Like, there's something so, it makes me so angry when people abuse their power over me. I'm like, you know what? I'm a software engineer. I can like say fuck you and build a different solution. And the hardest part at that point is not the technology, is getting enough people to like see past the warts of the UX and get on board with this new system and escape the old system. And so I find that's kind of been the biggest challenge of any of this, really.
Yeah, and going back to your point that it really could be like these particularly social media companies can be a form of mind control, or at the very least, if mind control as a term drives negative connotations in your mind, at the very least, like propaganda mechanisms. Yeah. It's being, I mean, we're coming to find that, again, with the Twitter files, they were working very closely with the FBI and had ex-FBI CIA agents working in their halls. And then when that news broke, people were like, all right, how many agents does Facebook have? And they have hundreds of FBI and CIA agents. And that's another thing I've been trying to get out there more recently, is these 3-letter intelligence agencies are not really here to help you. They're here to control you and others around the world. And just with those facts in mind of how close they were to these social media platforms, particularly close to the policy around who can and cannot say things, right. They're definitely trying to craft a particular narrative, or maybe not even craft a narrative, only let certain narratives get out there and really stamp out open discourse.
Yeah, there's always a suspicion that stuff like this was happening behind the scenes, but just seeing it all play out, that, oh wait, yeah, okay, it's actually happening the way that everyone thought it was happening. And so there needs to be more accountability, like who is watching, like who are these agents and how are they getting away with this shit? Like there's just huge accountability issues in that agency, and they need to figure that shit out, because it's just, this should not be happening. So having more public networks and more open networks, I think maybe will help with this. And going along what you were saying with, I think this has been affecting this lack of diversity of thought on the internet, just because, if there's so many, there's a survivorship bias on Twitter, which, like, just from what you see, it's like, oh, this seems normal. This is what everyone thinks. But in reality, everyone who doesn't think that way have been like banned from the platform. So you don't really have an idea of what is reality, because it's been crafted for you just through the survivorship bias. So I think has been a huge issue just on the culture in general, like this moderation and censorship, because it gives you a warped version of reality.
Yeah. I mean, you literally had this San Francisco FBI precinct emailing Twitter, "Hi, Twitter folks. Here's who we want you to ban today." And then,
it's bizarre.
It is. It's creepy. It's creepy. Yeah, we're at this weird inflection point. Like I was talking about The Sovereign Individual, the book, with somebody in the space last week, and that was everybody in Bitcoin focuses on the fact that they were very presciently predicted Bitcoin, there would be the cyber money protected by cryptography that would escape. But the other 2/3 of the book, or the other two most important topics, were the emergence of AI and information distillation in the digital age. It's going to be, the signal to noise ratio is going to be as distorted as ever, and the individual is going to need to equip themselves with tools that allow them to filter information more granularly. Like Facebook, Twitter, they're filtering it for you. And this is what something like Nostr and Damus gives you the ability to do, is to create your own filtering mechanisms to get the information that you want or that you deem to be valuable in your life.
Yeah, it's scary to see what would happen if you were to apply a very powerful AI like ChatGPT to changing discourse and changing people's opinion. I'm sure it's already it's already happening. So just not having one like party in control of that one information stream is pretty important. So I can totally see there's going to be like a lot of small communities pop up around, maybe more. This isn't happening right now. All the relays are public and everyone kind of sees everyone's messages if you're connected to the same relays. But you can totally see like smaller relays with just small communities that only you have to be whitelisted to get into them. So there's a lot of different use cases as well. But yeah, this whole idea of a global consensus view on reality, it's probably just not true.
No. In the last 3 years have proven that probably isn't the best idea to just go along with the consensus view of reality. You'll end up without your business, with some forced bodily injections and and believing that inflation is transitory.
And get like a Fauci tattoo or something, whatever crazy people things are doing. Like, what is going on?
How are things up in Canada?
They're pretty chill. They're very cold right now. So it's been, I haven't gone outside, been mostly inside coding. So that's good. But in terms of freedom, things has pretty much died down. Like definitely can actually go to restaurants again, which is nice. It's like, but it's still not a free country in any means. But
it seems like Alberta's making moves to try to assert themselves as an autonomous province that is going to say, "Hey, Trudeau, we're going to do our own thing over here."
Yeah, Alberta's always been kind of one of those provinces that just kind of like fuck you to everyone else, and they're much more conservative and much cooler than a lot of parts of countries.
Well, awesome. What I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm sure you're busy looking at the servers and dealing.
I restarted it during this conversation because it started catching fire, but otherwise it's been okay.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm excited for you. This has been I'm sure it's been a cool, surreal week for you. But time will pass. This will come and go. Shit needs to get built out. And it seems like you guys are motivated and getting more organized than ever to actually bring your vision to fruition, which is really cool to see.
I'm glad that people are excited. I'm glad that people are starting to see like the importance of these protocols. I don't know if this will be like the protocol that wins. I think it's currently in the lead just because I think it's the best. And I've tried a lot of the other ones. I'm a protocol nerd, and I think it's coolest. And we got some big integrations with the big companies, and so I think it's winning. We just need to build it out, make it better. So if anyone who wants to try it out, like again, we're please beware that it's still very early. Like a lot of the software is kind of crappy, and we're trying to build it out. So any feedback we can get is always great. So yeah.
Yeah, and if you're willing and able, competent, and prepared, do some code review, make a PR, help building. It's an open project.
Yeah, we'll give you sats, so help us out.
All right, well, jb55, it's always a pleasure. Again, just want to reiterate, extremely excited for you. I think the work that you, fiatjaf, and everybody else contributing to Nostr is doing is extremely important, especially considering everything going on in the world right now on the internet. And I'm pulling for you guys, using it, having fun, and that's the most thing. It's fun. Most important thing. It is fun.
Just trying to keep it fun. If you want to have fun, come join Nostr. We're having fun over here. Yeah, but it's been a great conversation. It's always fun coming on here. So thanks.
Well, enjoy the rest of your probably chaotic day, and hopefully we can do another update at some point in 2023. We have a lot of cool things to talk about then.
For sure.
All right. That's all we got today. Peace and love.